To start the model off, I primed it black and then gave it a coat of P3's Thornwood Green to give it a nice base color. We're then going to start on the armor. We're going to take Citadel's Contrast Garagax Sewer and start to apply it over all that armor. It's going to be pretty thick, so you can apply a bit of it and then water your brush down a little bit and kind of spread it over to the other parts of the armor. You'll want it thicker down towards the bottom where there will be less sunlight. Then we're going to take that sewer contrast, we're going to mix in 2 thin coats Scabbard Brown, and we're going to start layering up on that nice dark base color we have. Don't apply too much paint. You want to do little amounts because the more you paint, the more work you're doing, and it's not necessarily going to look better. Utilize that nice dark base color that we have, especially since it'll help the Trench Crusade dark mood that we want. Then we're going to take pure Scabbard Brown and we're going to bring up the brightness just a little bit. I'm using some pretty small, quick brush strokes to create texture. Make sure you leave your darks dark and don't overdo it. Next, we're going to take 2 thin coats Vambrace Brown along with 2 thin coats Wasteland Brown and mix them about a 50-50 ratio and begin to highlight. At this point, less is truly more because the more you add, the more brown this is going to look. Once we've got that completed, we're going to take 2 thin coats Apocalypse Sky and we're going to water it down like this thumb test you just saw. We're just going to start dabbing it in there to apply a rust effect. Apocalypse Sky is a desaturated orange sort of color, so it's going to work perfect for our rust. It's not going to add too much color to kind of ruin the vibe of the model. And you can also glaze this color down into these darker areas and it'll kind of catch on these rivets naturally. And because it's not such a super saturated color, you can go back in and add more with like a second coat to really kind of punch it in there. Once that effect is down, we're going to go back to highlighting. We're going to take pure Wasteland Brown and just do some edge highlighting. My brush strokes are a little bit thicker here than I'd like, but I'm on camera, so it's a little bit difficult to paint. Next, we're going to take Sky Gray by AK 3rd Gen and mix it in with our previous brown and begin to add some final highlighting, kind of like chipping. We're just going to add it to some select areas. Not too much because while the gray does kind of help sell the metal look, it can also look very funny if you put on too much. We're then going to work on the cape, and for that we're going to take Citadel's Contrast Black Templar and water it down a little bit before we begin to apply it. When you apply it, make sure your brush strokes are going downwards towards the bottom of the model. This will let your paint build up towards the downward area, which will act as your shadows. Then we'll mix our Black Templar with some Skaven Blight Dinge by Citadel and begin to highlight. We want to have our paint towards the top of the cape while leaving that bottom darkened. Then we're going to do the same with pure Skaven Blight Dinge, and we're just going to apply it a little bit towards that upper area, but also a little bit on the edges of the very bottom just to define them. Take that Sky Gray and then mix it in with your Skaven Blight Dinge, and then we're going to begin our next highlight. It's going to be mostly an edge highlight, however we're also going to use this color to create some texture. As well as a little bit of highlighting towards the bottom and picking out these ratty kind of holes in the cape and highlighting the bottom of those. After that, we're going to take some Sky Gray, we're going to thin it down like this, and then we're going to apply it towards the edge of the cape in this kind of textured motion where you're doing horizontal strokes towards the edge, which will then blend back in with some thin down Skaven Blight Dinge just to make it look a little bit more natural. In this next section, I'm going to kind of freehand a cross on the cape, and I am by no means a freehand expert. We're going to take amphora red by 2 thin coats and kind of start to sketch our basic shape. As you saw, I initially defined exactly where I want the cross to start and end, and then I just sort of fill it in from there. I'm just making a basic cross shape. I'm not worrying about the curves because we're going to be adding those later. Additionally, use this red to paint the shield. Then we're going to take 2 thin coats Emperor's Red, mix it in with our amphora red, and then add it to the cross to punch in some more color, as well as highlighting the shield. Pure Emperor Red is next, and we're going to highlight the shield, and for this step we really want to add that texture in, so make some nice and scratchy marks and some stippling to create it. Additionally, punch in some more color on that cross. After that, we'll take Centurion Red and mix it in with our Emperor Red and begin to edge highlight, and once again build a little bit more texture as you highlight on that shield. I will also highlight the cross with this, mostly focusing on the edges of that freehand design. Then with that pure Centurion Red, we'll do some corner highlights on that shield. Hit the corners, hit the dings, and a little bit more on the top edge. And then we can move over to our cape and do the very edges of that cross. Now we're going to make the shape of our curved cross, and for that we're just going to take our black Skaven Blight Dinge blend and kind of just remove parts of that red cross to make the shape that we want. Next we're going to move on to the metals, and for that we're going to start with Cold Corpse Blue from 2 thin coats, and we're going to apply it over the chainmail here, and we're not going to hit the entirety of the chainmail. We want some parts to be black, so that way it looks like shadows are going on in there. Then we're going to take Wolf Gray by 2 thin coats and do the same. We're going to feather it along the chains, and as we get brighter we want to apply less paint. Now we're going to take Gravestone Blue, and we're going to be very delicate with our painting here. We're only going to grab some links to make it show that light is really hitting and reflecting on some parts of this armor. We're going to utilize that Sky Gray once again, and we're going to pick off some of the links, but only focusing on the bottom of those links. With the scarcity of how we're applying this, you should be able to see the transformation of how it looks really non-metal metallic. We're also going to reuse that Apocalypse Sky, water it down, and start to apply it in those chain links to add a rust effect. Avoid your white highlights, because if you apply this over those whiter highlights, you will destroy the look of the non-metal metallic. Now we're going to move on to the lens, and for that we're going to take Faust Blue by 2 thin coats, and we're going to apply it towards the bottom end of the lens. You want your brush strokes going a very specific way, which is away from your light source. Let's zoom in and grab some Shadow Blue by 2 thin coats and apply a highlight in a crescent shape towards that bottom area to really sell that rounded lens sort of look. After that, we'll take Frost Blue by 2 thin coats, and we'll do the same thing, but even less. Be very gentle with how much pressure you're applying, so that way your line is nice and thin. Then we will take a pure black, anyone is fine. We're going to water it down to about this consistency before applying it towards the top left-hand corner or wherever your light is directly hitting. Then we will take pure white and apply a little dot in that darker corner to make that reflection of the sunlight hitting it. You can also mix it in with some of that Frost Blue and make some secondary reflections, highlighting in that highlight as well as near your bright white highlight. And there we have it, the Observer from Trench Crusade is complete. I think the Observer is the second most iconic miniature from the Trench Crusade line, the first being that artillery witch that everyone loves. The Observer has such a cool look to it. I'm very happy with my paint job. I hope you really like it. I tried to get it very close to the artwork, and I think I succeeded pretty well. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Leave a like, leave a subscribe if you really like this video. I have a ton more content, a lot of Trench Crusade, I'm doing a lot of Marvel, I'm doing a lot of Gundam in the future as well, so stick around if you like it, and I will catch you in the next one.